Hello all of you. Now in this video we are going to discuss, as requested by most of you, the fluid and electrolyte concept. Yes, we all know that knowing the concept of fluid and electrolyte, it plays very important role in the management of any patient. So let's start our journey. We'll go slow, one by one. Would like to understand the concept behind, right? So let's start. Now in fluid and electrolytes, the first important thing we should know, now in our human body, when the changes they are going to occur, and when we are supposed to manage a patient or a human body by managing the fluid and electrolyte requirement of that particular body. So when the changes do occur, we should know. And after that, in this video, we'll define our some learning objectives for this video as well as for subsequent videos related to this topic. Now, changes in fluid volume and electrolyte composition, just easy to remember. If suppose any patient is going to be operated or he or she needs some intervention, especially the surgical one, it's easy to remember that that patient may require the fluid replacement or electrolyte replacement in pre-operative period, before the operation, or intraoperative period, during the operation, and post-operative period. Operation is now finished and we are managing the patient either in the ICU, intensive care unit, or in the ward, and in that phase that patient requires replacement, that is post-operative period. So these are the three scenario where the fluid volume and electrolyte composition they usually change. Are there any other requirements? Are there any other scenarios? Yes. Apart from all these three, what we have just discussed, the changes do occur if a patient has sustained trauma, any major trauma, hemorrhage is going on, the plasma volume is being continuously changed. So in that case, yes, changes in fluid volume rapidly occurs. The fifth condition where this fluid volume or electrolyte composition may change is in response to sepsis. When patient is presenting with septicemia, some septic foci is there. Let's say, for example, a case of perforation peritonitis. A hollow viscous perforation is there, and in response to that, patient is having septicemia. So in response to sepsis, yes, again the fluid volume may change and electrolyte composition may change. So these are the 5 basic scenarios where we are supposed to manage the fluid and electrolyte. So now our aim is clear. Why do we want to know about this fluid and electrolyte? Because these are the 5 common scenarios where we would like to intervene. Clear? Okay. So now let's go to are defined objectives. SLO means specific learning objectives. By going through the subsequent videos and this video, what we are going to learn. So our first SLO would be to know the normal anatomy of body fluids. How this human body is arranging the fluid component that is present in our body, the normal anatomy of body fluids. Followed by that, the next specific learning objective will be electrolyte composition. We would like to know about the electrolyte composition, various ions, the sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, and other ions we would like to know. The third learning objective will be the various abnormalities. Now we already have information regarding the normal one. So third SLO would be to know the various concentration abnormalities and how to treat them depending on our knowledge. So these are the 3 SLOs we have defined, and 3 more are there. After knowing all these 3 SLOs, we would like to go with common metabolic derangements. What are the different conditions that may affect a human body leading to various metabolic derangements? The 5th one is, what are the alternative resuscitative fluids? One of the students among you requested me to talk about the concept of crystalloid and colloid. Again, it will come under this, the resuscitative fluids, other alternatives. Then finally, the management of specific surgical patients or medical patients, and in those patients, what type of fluid and electrolyte abnormalities we may see. We'll go with these specific learning objectives one by one. I would like to keep the video short, and I would like to more centralize toward the understanding of a concept rather than overloading you. So in this video, we'll start with our first, the normal anatomy of body fluids, first SLO, specific learning objective. Okay, let's start. SLO number 1, the body fluids. Our human body, let's try to understand the total body water in a human being, an average adult human being, is in between 50% to 60% of total body weight. If that person is a male, 60% of total body weight is water. If that person is a female, around 50% of total body weight is water. Right? Example, 100 kg male, 60 kg is water inside that human body. 100 kg weight female, 50 kg water approximately. Okay, it's a rough estimate just to understand the concept. Now the important thing is this total body water and total body weight relationship, the ratio is almost constant for an individual, and this relationship also demonstrates the presence of body fat in that particular individual. Right? So TBW and TBWT. TBW means total body water, H2O in various forms, and total body weight. Whatever we are just asking, okay, what is your weight? This weight, total body weight. So total body water, 60% in males and 50% in females. Now, any person lean thin, and the tissues like muscles and solid organs like liver, spleen, all these organs and tissues, they contain more water as compared to what? As compared to fat and bone. Whatever we are discussing, this is also important for your upcoming entrance exams. The questions may be there from any one of the fact, whatever we are discussing here. So muscles and solid organs, more water than fat and bone. So for example, if somebody is young and thin, the males, they will have higher total body water percentage than obese one or elderly one. Now how to measure this total body water? How to determine? I am saying 60 kg out of 100 for a male, 50 kg out of 100 for a female. How do I know this? There are methods to determine this, and the most common method is the indicator dilution methods. Indicator dilution methods. This one. Indicator dilution methods. And in this deuterium oxide, the deuterium oxide and tritiated water, these deuterium and tritium, these are various the forms of hydrogen element. Deuterium oxide, the deuterium and tritiated water, they are basically used to measure total body water. So okay, one thing is now clear. Total body water we can measure by indicator dilution method. One thing is clear, total body water, right? Now I've told you that females are having 50%, slightly lower than as compared to males. Lower percentage of total body water is there in females. It correlates with, if somebody is having something lower, then that must be replaced by something else, and that is higher percentage of adipose tissues there. Low water as compared to males, low muscle mass as compared to males, and that is being replaced by the higher percentage of adipose tissue in females. Right? Okay. There are few conditions where we would like to adjust the percentage of total body water, especially in obese patients. In obese patients, let's say a 100 kg person is there, male. Normally, I'm saying 60 kg water is there in a 100 kg person, male. But if his BMI, body mass index, is more, or let's say if he is obese, then the percentage of water, let's say on an average, will reduce to 15%, means 60% minus 15%, the average of 10 to 20% range. So almost 45% of total body weight will be the water composition in obese patient. So in 100 kg obese, 45 kg water only. Normally it is 60 kg water. Whereas in malnourished individuals, the lean and thin, inadequate diet, the presence of total body water increased up to 10%. So in that case, let's say a 50 kg individual is there, and normally he is having 30 kg water, accounts to 60%. In that person, the malnourished individual, he will be having around 70% of total body weight, the water. That is 35 kg water is there out of 50 kg total body weight, right? In various forms, obviously, in various forms. We will discuss in what are the various forms. So body fluids, how the pattern goes on, the total body water is highest, the highest percentage is seen in newborn, around 80%. It decreases to 60% by 1 year of age. For next, after 1 year of age, it almost remains constant till 15 to 20 years of age. Almost it fluctuates between 65% to 60% till 20 years of age after first year. And then we follow the adulthood criteria, what we have just discussed. The adulthood criteria in male 60%, in females 50%. Okay, right. So this is all about total body water. Now how this total body water is present in our human body. This total body water is divided into 3 functional fluid compartments. They are almost dynamic fluid compartments. They just interchange between each other, the electrolytes, the volume, and their functional fluid compartments. So if you can observe in this slide, the ICF is written slightly larger as compared to ECF. So just for your visual memory, just remember the proportion of ICF is more as compared to ECF. ECF is just 1/3 of the total body water and ICF is 2/3 of the total body water. ECF stands for extracellular fluid. ICF stands for intracellular fluid. Intracellular fluid means inside the cell. Any cell of the human body. Inside the cell, the proportion of water that is present, that is ICF. Outside the cell, anywhere but outside the cell, if that is present, that is ECF, extracellular fluid. So outside the cell, this water is present in basically 2 major forms, and that is plasma, in the form of plasma, the blood component, the plasma, and outside the vascular tissue, the vessels, the extravascular interstitial fluid, means outside the vascular fluid, outside the vessels, in between the cells, that is interstitial fluid. So plasma and extravascular interstitial fluid, combining these two, that is known as extracellular fluid, 1/3 of total body water. ICF is intracellular fluid, the water percentage or component that is present inside a cell, any cell. Now, as we have discussed, the extracellular fluids includes plasma and interstitial fluid, and 1/3 of total body water, it is responsible for that. The intracellular fluid, 2/3 of total body water, means what? 100 kg person, 60% we are talking about male, 100 kg person, 60% is total body water, means 60 kg. Out of this 60 kg, 1/3 is ECF, in the form of ECF, extracellular fluid, outside the cells, means 1/3 of 60 kg is 20 kg, right? Whereas the ICF, intracellular fluid, present inside the cells, various cells combining together, 2/3 of this 60 kg means 40 kg. So in a 100 kg person, 20 kg ECF and 40 kg ICF. 20 plus 40, 60 kg total body water in a male. Okay, I hope you got the concept. I have just explained this. So EC